Let's call meeting to order. Approval of last month's minutes.
Although that we approved December 11th on the first reading.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. So I would just want to acknowledge our operations maintenance staff for our work and vacation the past week dealing with the inclement weather. First round, and it was a hard round, and certainly we're grateful for those personnel on both sides of the business to brave the elements, make it into work and deliver safe, reliable service, whether it was, safely operating the service or keeping the vehicles maintained, or all the folks that help to keep the facilities, shelters, and so forth cleared out during the weather. So, big round of applause and thank you to the frontline staff.
Yes.
It was some tough conditions, and hopefully things temper out a little bit the rest of the week. But great start. So thank you.
Looking great.
To them.
news coverage, too.
Yeah, that was some positive words that came out of that too. So that's always wonderful. Real quick, a couple things in terms of state and federal updates. Spring legislation began last week. Illinois Public Transit Association will continue to monitor the bills filed and we'll look at discussing strategies around long-term sustainability of our downstate operating funds. We talked about in here. The operating fund is also, while different from the fiscal cliff that the RTA region faces, that fund has a cliff out there where revenues need to keep pace with the operating expenses, and they're starting to tip the wrong way. So as we continue to work through the spring legislative session, if we'll be having discussions with members, including those from RTA, about just the long-term balance and funding and what we're trying to advocate to ensure that our built fund remains vibrant and fully funded. So a lot of things going on, especially around the state with transit and parking. Equally, a lot of discussion at the federal level with the appropriation. That continues to be a discussion item. As you probably saw in the news last Thursday, the House and Senate passed a continuing resolution. The president signed it for the weekend before they had the shutdown. That extends things out to the beginning of March, and hopefully get a deal done by then. It doesn't jeopardize any of our formula funding or anything that we have in grants, but there'll be no new no-fos and discretionary grant opportunities until that gets resolved, because it's tied in 2024 funding. But we'll keep you updated on that. But we've done some outreach through AFTA to just remind our congressional delegation the importance of a fully funded transit package, which has been a point of discussion in the appropriations rounds. The Senate wants to fund it at about the level of the way that is outlined in the bipartisan infrastructure law. The House, not so much, significantly less. Most of the funding reductions are in congressional elected spending and rail, but doesn't really compromise transit funding. It's still, as an industry, we continue to advocate for funding at the levels that were outlined in the law. So that and work with that. A couple other items locally. We're continuing to work with IDOT and the city of Rockford on phase 1 of the Raise Complete Streets project. One of the items that we're monitoring and working through with them on is to ensure that we have an agreement in place by this September. At the end of the day, funds need to be obligated by the beginning of September in order for that, all the funding associated with that project, including our funding for the 2 battery electric buses, to move forward. So work continues on that. They're making meaningful progress. They think they're fine to get all the work accomplished by that date, and that goes with our project as well. So we'll continue to work with them to make sure that happens. Additionally, we'll continue to work with our ONPC staff on the bus rapid transit corridor analysis project. We met with the consultants last week on their proposals and had a good discussion around both of those groups, hoping to make a decision with our ONPC staff on consulting move forward on that project within the next week or so. So we'll keep you updated on that as that continues to move forward. Additionally, we're working with RAM in the local group of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, on developing some training for our staff. One of the outcomes of our recent ADA, annual ADA sensitivity training was a lot of questions around how to deal with folks that are challenged in having episodes of mental illness in our community. And so we're looking at giving our staff, frontline employees, more tools to deal with those encounters, and then obviously identify resources to help us engage those individuals so we have positive outcomes from that. So we're working with those two groups currently on some additional training, hopefully here this over the next couple of months to deliver the staff to aid them in dealing with those issues. I just want to note that, you know, our partnership with RAM continues to be one that we utilize, and we want to use a number of different things for training. Finally, I was going to mention the board real quickly that I have Williams McCarthy currently reviewing our bylaws. Our bylaws have not been updated since 2010. Now, very few changes really have been impacting those, but always good to do a periodic review of those. So I have them doing that, and we'll be forwarding those to the board as part of your packet that the board meetings review and hopefully approve. Those changes that if there's any. So just want to give you a note of that to look forward to the. So with that, there's no questions. We can move on to the other parts of the agenda. Spend some time. Yeah. Always good to go through this now. Those are, like I said, as we went back through there and looked at the last time, those were updated. So time to just give it a review, make sure there's no changes that we need to do. Right. So with that, we'll get on to the financial reports. First and foremost, we have the AGHL services rendered through November 30th, 2023. That was in the packet for your review. Are there any questions on that item?
No.
Okay, and then we had the Williams McCarthy services rendered through November 21st and December 18th. Any questions on those?
No.
Okay, then we'll move on to approval of accounts payable invoices. So included for your review were the listing of those items. The sum total for this month was $762,913.79. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to entertain those. Otherwise, for your approval.
I move that we approve the accounts payable invoices.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next item, then we have approval of the unaudited financial statements for October 2023. That was in packet with you. Were there any questions on that?
Stood up.
Ron, do you have anything else to add on that? Do you have the positive budget variance again for October? Revenues were up. But anything else? No. Okay.
Move that we approve the unaudited financial statements for October 2023.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Just a note on financial statements. Last month, we had the draft audit that came to the board approved draft audit. Just note, we did get that submitted to the state, the final draft report prior to the end of December 28th, that was mailed off to the state. So we met that requirement.
Thank you.
Update on that. So the next item we have then is the pension portfolio review for the period ending December 31st and the pension investment statement for the months ending November 30th and December 31st. So we have Jeff DeBenedetto from the DeBenedetto and Associates to go over that information, answer any questions you may have.
Yeah. Thanks for having me today, gentlemen. These are meetings that I enjoy more than a year ago when we didn't have such good news. In your reports, you have consolidated views that we started doing since I've been coming to finance committee meetings and doing more detail there. So I will move along to page 6 of the 1231 report that starts portfolio overview. In the right-hand column on the top third of the page, you'll see year-to-date for the pension. You can see in 2023, we started with 25,285,537. We had the pension contributions of $1,650,000. We had pension obligations of $1,654,000. And if you skip down to the bottom, we ended the year at just under 29 million with a total investment gain of $3.7 million or a total net return of 14.6. last year was a good year. Both stocks and bonds performed well last year. In comparison, the year before they didn't. So while we didn't earn back everything that we lost, we made great strides in 2023. To kind of put that in comparison, if you step back a page to page 2, this is the piece that we keep an eye on to see how we're doing in the world around us, the impact of diversification. Again, about a third of the way down the page, you can see in that chart there are different blended portfolios. It starts with 100% equities and goes down to 100% fixed income. Currently, we sit about 60-40 stocks to fixed income, so equities and then the bonds and the cash that we have for the pension obligations. So we aren't 50-50, we aren't 75-25. Those are the two categories that are closest to how we manage. The 50-50, as you can see, in a blended portfolio was up 14.43. We were up slightly higher than that. My comments that I'll add is we talked about last year, the performance of stocks was similar in 23 as it was in 21, where there was a very small number of technology and large capitalization stocks that carried most of the return. Because we have to be careful with the pension and are further diversified, it will look that we lagged a little bit. So when you compare, the 75-25 was up 19, the 50-50 was up 14, we were just above that. We may have lagged about 1%, but that's not uncommon when we're more diversified than a market that goes up with a small number of stocks. So we were very comfortable with the return last year and very happy with the return. Bonds actually did well. Bond interest rates came up and moved down a little bit towards the end of the year, but our bond fund managers averaged over 6% return, so we did very well. We did very well. Are there any questions on that snapshot for the calendar year? Okay, the next page is the fiscal performance. So that's the summary that looks a little different. So through 6/30/23 through the end of the year, our total return just past halfway down the page, 6.11%. You know, that's a great start for us for the fiscal year. I'm hopeful that we can just retain that and that will help our actuarial calculation for the following year. And then I did include up-to-date material. So if you go past that, we have data through 1/16. And you can see the market has started out slow this year. We show down about 1% halfway through that page 2, dated 1/16/24. And then also for the fiscal year, same results. We're up 5.09 versus 6%. But in the vein of more good news, I can tell you we've earned about half of that back in the last week. So we're at 28,820 as of this morning. Any questions, any of those numbers? Just a little aside, I'll share that, you know, while last year was good, you know, this year we're waiting for economic data to give the Federal Reserve an idea of where they go with interest rates. There are a lot of economists that feel that rates will come down this year and that'll help keep the economy going, the U.S. economy. We would agree with that, probably not till second half of the year. But you know, we need data to come out to see how corporate earnings are and inflation data and employment data to support that. So we're kind of just in a wait and see, and that's why the market has kind of traded sideways so far this year. The election plays a part in this. Statistically, election years are good years for the stock market, so we'll have to wait and see how that plays out for us. Other than that, you know, we're supporting, you know, Michael reported that the government agreed on a spending bill, but only for a couple months. They kicked the can down the road. We got to wait and see what happens there. Congress is mostly dysfunctional, so politics is going to probably play a bigger part in the economy this year than it did last year. But overall, we feel like returns will continue to be positive in 24.
Any other questions for Jeffrey?
Report.
Thank you.
You can't take all the credit, but I do enjoy these meetings.
Thanks, appreciate it. Side note related, next month, Fresh Schwab Associates will be here to do the annual actuarial analysis report recommendation for the pension contribution. And related to that, budget preparation continues. Ron and staff are meeting on a weekly basis now to come up with the budget projection, just to include in the draft submission to the board for next month's. All right, there's nothing else in questions in that area. We'll move on to the operations report. So first up, we've got the fixed route ridership stats for November and December. Good news continues, positive upswing in ridership. Also on the board report, I think it's was briefly note that we're up 37, a little over 37% year to date ridership wise, continuing a positive trend, still projecting over 1 million rides again this year. Compared to where we were fiscal year 19, so December of 2018, we're about 71% of where that ridership was then. So continue to climb back out of that hole, if you will. On to, if there's no questions in that report, we can move on to the demand response report. Yeah, demand response, staff is caught up on the reporting, and we have for you reviews the November and December report, focus on December report, the year-to-date information. Up 6.5% December, still negative 1% year. Compare that ridership to high year, which would be the December 2019, so the year, the COVID year, if you will, FY20, we're about 80% of what total number of rides were comparatively. So that's a little bit closer than the fixed route, but still that we're not quite back up to that demand response ridership that we're in. Some other items that are part of that equation. S&T continues to track a little bit higher, 8% December, 3% for the year. Medicaid is continuing a little bit of a stronger recovery. Medicaid rides are up 25% for the year. So we're starting to see those, obviously those rides come with a little bit higher reimbursable amount than the other rides. And so that's always a positive trend to see, is that the revenue from those is higher than other areas. Finally, I'll note that Boone County Council of Aging, the Boone County demand response rides continue to trend higher than they did last year. They're up 8% for December and 17% for the year. So, any questions on that? No? Okay. So now we'll move on to service related to both fixed route and demand response. Included in your packet this month was a notification from Boone County advising that the county would like to discontinue funding our fixed route service to Boone County starting in fiscal year 25. So starting July 1 of 2025 or 2020, I'm sorry, fiscal year 25 budget. As you know, that's been a service that we provide a marginal number of trips, and there's not a lot of folks that ride that service. Obviously, it provides a critical link from the Eastside Transfer Center to downtown Belvedere. Just as in the report, like looking at just the ridership figures, in December we provided 190 rides on the fixed route service. That 24, that's operates weekdays only, 4 trips a day. In fiscal year 23, we provided just shy of 2,000 rides total on that service. So kind of do the math on what are we really seeing in terms of utilization of that route. Just look at the December numbers, it's 4 trips a day, about 8 rides a day. So about 2 people are riding per trip on our service. So maybe 1 inbound, 1 outbound, or 2 inbound, and so forth. Of those trips, we have about 35 trips in December that were transfers between the Boone County Council of Aging service, the demand response service, and our service. So about 20% of the trips that we have are actually transfers that are coming off of the demand response service in that area. When you compare that against what's the demand response service has for ridership, in December, as was in the report, the demand response service had about 1,864 rides that were provided compared to 190 on the fixed route side. Last year, the service provided over 21,000 rides on the demand response service compared to 1,900 rides. So as the county has looked at the numbers and the utilization rates, and looking at their own budget challenges, they've come back and said, you know, we just can't continue to fund that service at that level, the number of people riding it. we'd rather continue to try to fund completely all of the service that we have, that's the demand response service. As was noted in their memo, they've increased their levy for transportation services in the county to try to ensure that they're able to fund that whole level and provide that complete local share of the service and demand response side. Which just a comparison of what they're funding us at. As I mentioned, the fixed route side, the funding for that is about 48,000 for the county each year. That's their share. The local share, the 35%. On the demand response side, it was about 202,000 is what they fund for the demand response side. So as their costs have gone up, cost of labor and everything else, they've been more and more challenged to ensure they've got enough funding completely to fund that portion of the service, which results in them raising their levy on their side.
Plus, at the same time, if they remember, the trip rate for the BCCA side, almost probably doubled in the last 3 years, so whatever money they have, they need to use for that purpose.
So yeah, we go back, we mentioned that about the contract revision. Obviously, we contract out to BCC to provide this service that runs essentially through the county when it comes to reimbursement. So all that told, that's what's, as we've met with them and talked to them, it's factoring into their decision-making here and trying to maintain that service. As a note, our agreement, our IGA is with the county for both fixed route and paratransit service. Or sorry, fixed route and demand response service. Several years ago, when we, I don't know, probably 15 years ago, when we started the service, it was originally fixed route service was through a federal grants, a job access reverse commute jargon.
And New Freedom.
Sure. Yeah, New Freedom. And so the funding originally for that service was principally provided by the federal government and subsidized to the state. Right, and so they gave you 3 years to implement the service, come up with a local funding source to maintain the service and to get it going. And so inevitably what happened was that once the federal funding ran out, then the local funding didn't replace it. And therefore, we were left with trying to continue that service. Belvedere jumped in, so Belvedere provided an amount initially, and under the condition that the service be pulled back.
Right, we were trying to leave
Yeah.
something out there because we
Yeah.
figured if we pulled it back, we wouldn't get the deal to start a fixed route again. But Mayor Brereton was the one that really went to bat to get the job access funds for this, and he was very pro transit. However, unfortunately, by the time the funds ran out, Mayor Brereton was no longer in office and had a new mayor out.
The decision was made to pull the service back. That's how we ended up with just 4 trips, and whatever funding they were able to provide was helping fund that. That had continued on with the county started providing some funding for the fixed route as well, in addition to the demand response. And then finally that flipped to the county was financing all of the fixed routes with the assistance of the county. With the city through their funding of the demand response piece. And so the county's basically who we have our arrangement through. The county and the city work together to help fund transit in general in that area. So that's where it leaves us today, right? Is that they're notified us as which is part of our agreement, that they are not going to continue to fund the fixed route portion. They'll continue to fund demand response portion. We've started to talk to them about how we make sure that those folks who are transferring on a daily basis from the East Side Transfer Center have a way to do that. And so over the next several months, we'll be working with them to firm those plans up and put a plan in place to make sure that that can continue. The one thing that I would just submit to the board is that in these circumstances where we have IGAs with municipalities or local governments, whether it be within Chesley Park or Loves Park, or in this case, Boone County, the agreement has always been on the premise that that area is providing the local share, right? And by them providing the local share of the 35% operating expense, we're able to pass along the 65% state operating expense. And in doing so, Region is providing the local capital and vehicles to operate that. So they're just paying for the service. We're actually providing the vehicles to do that and identifying capital resources to do that. So in this case, just want to make sure the board is aware that's been standing practice or policy the board has had in dealing with these arrangements. The board does have the opportunity here, if they so choose, to fund this, the entire local share if they desire. It's their direction to, as a policy, to change our standing policy to move to continuing to put this fixed route service out there. We could do that. That's what the board directs us to do. But just the policy has been previously that, you know, if there's something operating outside of our local mass transit district, which is the city of Rockford, that those communities want transit, provide a local share. So that would change that policy if that's what the board directed. And I don't know if that's something that you wanted to consider or continue to maintain the board policy of committing on local share. No, all right. So I just want to pose that before we continue to have this discussion. So with that, just want to brief the board on that communicational background behind it, some of the data behind it, and some of the discussions and rationale why the county is making that decision. We will continue to work with them, and obviously the demand response service that's operating out there is filling a void and is pretty productive, right? And the number of rides that they're providing currently on the weekdays, Monday to Friday only 8 to 5, is pretty close to what the services for State Line Mass Transit. But State Line Mass Transit operates in the evenings and weekends, but Boone County must have the same amount of ridership with just a small thing. So it's very active, very productive. We'll continue to work with them to make sure they're supported to community. Any questions? Now we'll move on to the next item. We've got the vehicle and facility reports. Included in the packet is just the for fixed rail buses and paratransit vehicles, road calls and inspections and so forth. Any questions on that? Okay. If nothing else, we'll move on to the facilities report. Included in your packet was the update on that. As noted, the charging infrastructure and sprinkler project is almost complete, right? We're on the, we expect to have charge point in to do the commissioning of the chargers later this month. Finally, we'll get an appointment scheduled with them. There's some small cleanup work to be done on the alarm system that tied the new changes in, but that needs to be tested and signed up on the city, and then from there, by the end of the month, we should be ready to turn it on. Correct. So that's a positive note on that long project. Speaking of projects, we have the parking lot that you may have passed by on the way in. You see that's open, and so we open that up this month to cars, and that certainly much needed due to the snowfall and having a place to put people not on the street. So glad that was wrapped up. Additional item, the paratransit van order. Dan and George will be going out here next month for that build, and with that, hopefully we'll have vehicles starting to arrive here on property end of February, beginning of March. Yeah, middle of March. March at this point. So looking forward to replacing those aging paratransit vehicles with better vehicles and getting us back into the state of good repair. Finally, the facility expansion project, a couple things on that. The owner's rep has been in for initial meeting to go over and get them updated with plans. They started to review that and work with our A&E folks on that project. Larson Darby last month at the end of December submitted the drawings to the city of Rockford to begin plan review. So that's a big step in the process as well. And then the package goes to IDOT actually this week for their pre-bid concurrence. So
Yeah, my apologies. I thought when I was doing my report, I thought it was at IDOT.
Yeah.
It is not at IDOT yet, but
they'll have it this week. So a lot going on there in terms
yes,
of
we got it myself.
out there on plan review and moving the project along. So but more update next month.
Good, good progress.
Continuing down the list, if there's other questions on that front, we'll move on. HR report, claims history included in your packet, a little positive news in December and year to date, expenses were down. Any questions on that? Yes. If not, then we'll move on to the marketing reports. Orlando approval of existing contracts or improving approval of advertising contracts.
Yeah, just one contract this month. Is actually one that's kind of looking to 2025. Don't quote me, but McKellar, McAfee Kessler. I always mess it up. I'm sorry. I talk to them all the time, mess it up. So they have 2 bus wraps, and they'll be wrapping again for 2025. So they already wanted to get that contract out the way and pay up front. So we just need our approval, and we'll be good for 2025 for 2 bus wraps. So actually, you guys approve.
I'll move that we approve the advertising contract with McCloskey Kessler. 12,000.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And just a note on that, those will be going on our 1300 series vehicles. And so we have 8 of those, right?
Yes.
And so those are principally, with the 09's gone, those are our vehicles.
So need storage.
Also, so, as we know, Black History Month starts in February. So an idea that, I saw based off of what other transit operations were doing was, something to kind of celebrate Black History Month. And what's the best way to do it is on our buses. So I came up with the idea of having, 9 signs, one saying, just saying, let's celebrate Black History Month, but the other 8 showing figures that were important to help, the movement for, civil rights and things of that nature. So 4 of them will be local figures here in Rockford that made a big impact, which are listed in the memo, and then 4 national figures. So individuals that we see that made a, larger scale outside of Rockford as well. So that's one idea and one thing that we want to bring to you guys for your approval. And then another one is on February 4th, during Black History Month, is for Rosa Parks. So she has 2 days, but a lot of transit agencies incorporated it and tied it in with Transit Equity Day. So it's also on her birthday. So February 4th, we're also kind of coming up with, it's going to be a sleeve, and it's going to be a reserved seat on every fixed route bus to kind of show, memory and honor to what she did and her efforts to bring, equity and equality to transit services. So that's something that we're going to put together as well. So you guys' thoughts, how you feel, and, ask for your approval.
Say more about Transit Equity Day. That's the first time I heard that.
Same here.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it was really, I think, an outgrowth of Rosa Parks' birthday and celebration of her birthday. There's a couple dates associated with Rosa Parks, and one being the day in which Salem took the seat and took her stance in Birmingham, but the other being her birthday. So ultimately they decided that, I don't know what date, number of years ago, but it probably last several years, where Transit Equity Day was paired with her birthday, on her and her stance and what she did, and tying that together with Black History Month, there's an opportunity for us to do a couple different things here to celebrate that. And so Orlando and I talked, and we didn't come up with these ideas on our own. These were borrowed from other agencies across the country who do these same exact things, especially the Rosa Parks thing. Our friends down in Peoria have something similar to this street side signage.
and they just started probably like 3 years ago.
For their buses. And it's really, I think, part of what is part of us and our connection to the community and doing outreach and celebrating something that is really important to the transit industry in general, our community in general.
Yes, and some of these local names too, I partnered with the NAACP to get these local names, because obviously I'm not from Rockford, so I got to reach out and see. So they provide the name. So yes, I think it's a cool idea, man. Like you said, connecting with the community and really showing representation in a month that, means a lot to a lot of people. So just one more way to extend our hands to the community and say, we're here for you guys, because ultimately that's what we're here for, is the passengers in the community.
Big deal. I think those are big names. The selection of names is real.
Yeah.
Very good deal.
Thank you. Well, if the board has any concerns with that, then I just want to present it to you, make sure there weren't any questions, but we'll proceed with that initiative. And our objective is to make that part of what we do every February. moving forward. So thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate your support.
All right.
All right, then, moving on to the next item, the agenda is grants. We have the FY 23 fixed assets in final inventory review. So, Paula.
Yeah, you should have gotten a handout today as an update of that. There was just a small update, so. This is the fixed asset review. We started the beginning of the fiscal year at 59,657,914. Then we obviously had some additions and deletions. And so the ending balance ended up being 66,237,727. And again, using the audited numbers, we subtract the depreciation to come up with the net assets of 39,357,526. We only sold about $10,151 worth. And of that, we got $500, which we will put in our local capital account, which I believe actually we already spent on the newest equipment we bought, so. That's about it. It's looking good. We're adding vehicles. This year we didn't subtract any, but you'll see millions coming off next year, so.
So we need a motion to.
Oh, yeah, I have a notion to approve.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And this is a requirement of our triennial, so this is why you see this every year, so. I'm saying we presented to the board liked it, we're good, so.
Okay. All right, great, thank you, Paula. Moving on then to the safety and training report for December, include for your review, any questions on that? For total incidents, outside code, so a little bit less, so obviously becoming the winter months becomes a little more challenging than our summer months, but hopefully that continues to be a positive trend. Questions? Yeah. All right, with that, then we'll move on to other business. First item is the award of telephone technical consultant service. Paula, you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, we have some state money that we can use to actually buy a new telephone system. Ours is antiquated. And we need some assistance with putting together the technical specs. As you know, I mean, the telephone systems nowadays are a lot different than it was a decade ago when we had our current system. So we'd like to reach out and we'd like to hire a telephone technical consultant to provide us with to evaluate, to go around and talk to what we currently have and what we need, to create the specs for us, to help us actually with the evaluation of the vendor proposals, and actually to follow through and do the project management all the way through the actual installation of the telephone system. Currently, we do not have staff that has the ability, so we would again like to hire on a consultant. We went out and I got 2 quotes. One was from our current IBI group that's doing our consultant services for our CAD AVL system. But they came in about $59,420. Then I think it was Champaign-Urbana has suggested AECom, so I contacted them and they came back with a quote for $32,910. So it's for about up to 14 months of service. This will be paid out of operating our DOTE funds along with the local match. The telephone service itself, when we buy it, will come out of capital funds, but to get this service, to actually get this done, it will come out of operating.
So, yeah, so this would start, outreaching to them, outreach them if approved, to start working on the evaluation, development, the RFP. The whole project would take.
Well, and
we tried 14 months, but it's probably gonna move a lot quicker than that.
Yes.
Most of that will be within this fiscal year, but some will lead into the next fiscal year starting. So that's where the portion that we're talking about here will be distributed. The like as Paul mentioned, we have capital for replacement of a phone system. So we're talking everything from the phone that you see here in the hardware to the back end software that helps manage that
Right.
service, which, I don't think antiquated does it justice until the issues that we have.
Right.
So.
Well, and ADA, we want our recordings of our calls, and reporting on those calls as well.
There's a lot of back-end analytics and reporting systems and a whole host of things that we don't have right
Mhm.
now that help support our core business operation from not only our fixed route service, but also the customer service. Things. It's really, a project that's high priority for us. We want to make sure we do it right.
Right. Well, and you're talking multiple buildings with multiple divisions, because Pure Transit's got its own little thing, and then obviously operations and how the phones get handled is very important, and right now, it's totally not being handled. So, and again, we need the expertise to help us to make sure we get what we need.
Any questions?
Well, I was sold when you all said over 10 years ago.
That might be a low number too bad, 20 years ago.
But I remember seeing these phones when I came, so. I'm like,
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
We've only ever had two phone systems.
Yeah.
And we've been in this building for what, 35 years? We've
Yeah.
only ever had two different phone systems.
It's a lump sum not to exceed.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
right. Well, I'll move that we award the telephone technical consultant service to AECom for 32,910.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Really like to get that moving. That's great.
All right, and then the last item is approval of resolution R 24-01 RMT 47 plan amendment. Memo prepared for your review. The following changes were mutually agreed upon during collective bargaining sessions in 2013. They'll be made to the deferred compensation plan review and approval by the board of trustees. And work with shall authorize staff to implement the changes which will be retroactive to January 1st. So as a reminder, we are changing the contribution levels for all employees who are eligible for the 457 plan, in which if the participant contributes 2.25%, the district will match 4.5% of those. Participants' contributions and the employer match are 100% vested as of the date of the employee's initial participation, which is a change from the current plan. And then the in-service distributions, the participant may withdraw all or any portion of the vested account balance the next extent designated upon attaining of age 60. So these are an outline of the items that are updated as part of that plan amendment. And as we talked about a couple of times during our recent collective bargaining sessions, these were both aspects implemented as part of those agreements, the percent contribution matches. Jeffrey, is there anything in this matter that I missed or needs to know about? No. And again, that'd be retroactive back to January 1st, and we'll work with our folks to get that if the board approves that plan change.
Move that we approve resolution number R-24-01 for the RMT 457 plan amendment.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
That concludes our agenda. The next meeting, next two meetings, we're scheduled for 3:30 and March 22nd at 3:30. Do those still work for everybody or
Yep.
for those who can't attend?
Forms on both of those, and we needed to establish those for the budget meetings and budget.
It'll accommodate the public notice period
Yeah.
for the budget. notice.
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
All right. What we got?
I move that we adjourn at 4:14.
All right.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Third.
Appreciate it.